Kia ora. Good evening. Sorry, it's Friday night. It's just the best night. I'm telling you now. I'm sitting here. I don't use my lights. I don't turn any lights on unless I absolutely have to. I have candles in my room. I used to have a lamp, and like I can use lamps and I can turn the lights on if I want, but um, I don't want to use the electricity. And I love sitting with the candles burning. It's so ambient and beautiful. And I put my oils on, and I put my incense on, and I put my offerings on, because I burn incense every morning and every night, for my boys, for the king, for Vladimir Putin, um, any events going on. I lit one for Aussie, because we had a moment. So yeah, it's so beautiful. I was just sitting here saying to someone, it's nights like this I wish I had a boyfriend. Just laying on the bed and just with the ambience, and it's so romantic. And this is the night when you just want to be laying on the bed with your boyfriend, maybe with some nice sort of easy breezy music on, just making out on the bed. It's just so beautiful at the moment. I wish you could feel the atmosphere. So I thought, well, now's the perfect time to make a video. Do a podcast, to talk of these. I want to dispel some myths in the occult paranormal world, and I've made up a whole list in my head. I haven't written anything down. I've run out of paper in my notebooks because I'm a bugger for writing notes down. I find notes like 7 years later and it ends up causing some physics breakthrough, and I'm like, oh. But yeah, so I may have to pause while I remember the things that I remembered to say, but you're not going to notice. I may also be going off to make myself a cup of coffee in a minute, but yeah, so I'm going to dispel some myths about the paranormal. The first one is, if you've had experiences where you see people walk through walls, whether it's like bedroom walls, brick walls, ground walls, walking through trees, walking through solid buildings, walking through solid objects, that sort of thing. They're not walking through the objects at all. They would have been walking in a place where a time where the object you saw them walking through wouldn't have existed. They won't even know there's a wall or a tree or a brick or a whatever there. You're seeing the present, but they're seeing the past, and the two might not be, while you might be standing on the exact same ground, you might not be standing in the exact same building. Because buildings changed and, landscapes change. So, yeah, so they're not walking through walls and buildings, and that they won't even know they're there. The dead do not need to access portals. Buildings, landscapes, areas do not have portals, and the dead don't need to come in and out of the portals. Neither do aliens. But we're talking about the paranormal. Yeah, they don't need portals. Anywhere in a building that's been reported to have paranormal activity, where they've read, high EMF fluctuations in certain areas or stuff like that claim they're portals, it's not portals at all. It's sunspots, and we'll get on to EMF after this. But Portals are for like wormholes and biometric frequency, like biometric connection between the wormholes of the universe and the brain. Um, I mean, we've known for a while that the universe communicates with mammals. You know, like it's, the consciousness is all one. We talk to each other telepathically. This is a known fact. Like, you know, it's not hard to look this stuff up. So, you know, I'm not just making stuff up out of my butt. You know, I'm a scientist. So I might be what you call a basement scientist. I am not a educated scientist, but everything I do is based in science, and there is nothing in the rule book that says you have to have degrees in order to call yourself a scientist, because I looked it up, because I didn't want to call myself a scientist if I didn't have the right to call myself a scientist. And I can actually call myself a scientist. And there's people like Michael Faraday and that who never had any education whatsoever, and made some of the biggest breakthroughs in physics there is. So, you know, yeah, so I mean, I take what I do very seriously, and I want to be able to have the science world take what I do very seriously. You know, I've been snubbed and all of that by the ones what have the papers with stickers and stamps on them and stuff, that, you know, what tells them they are professors and doctors and stuff. You know, they've snubbed their noses up at me, but they did in the beginning, but they're not now, because it was all a joke until it all started coming into land. Because of the fact that I work in a field of science that has trillions upon trillions of dollars poured into things like the Hadron Collider and NASA and that, and here I am with no education and no money, being able to come up with this stuff with no technology and no money. And I'm trying to say to people, like, why are you wasting your money? It's just slowing you down. It's slowing us down. There's an easy way to do all of this than the way we've gone about it so far, and it's slowing our evolution down. It's slowing us down to the point where we're starting to de-evolve. And so my area of expertise is like time and energy, frequencies, language, which is ironic considering I'm too lazy to check my own spelling mistakes, but oh my god, autocorrect drives me insane. Like, leave it alone. And the paranormal and the occult. I'm sorry, but nobody knows this stuff better than I do. I might not use the same terms. I might not know every single thing that ever exists ever in the whole world, but how God has set me to task is that I'm an autodidact. So I teach myself as I go. I work it out as I go, and everything I do is intuitive. I follow my intuition down the yellow brick road, and it led me to, well, something way better than, way cooler than Oz. And so what I'm trying to do is teach people the correct way to see death, because as a high priestess as well, I prepare the living for their death. I basically set up the rules and tell them, you know, this is what you need to do if you want to get into the afterlife. For Egyptian people, there was nothing more important than getting to the afterlife. Everything matters in the afterlife because it decides who you're going to be next and what burdens you're going to be forced to carry because you didn't learn the last time. And the whole reason why my ancestors created me was because there were so many things my Egyptian ancestors got wrong that then the Western world 100 million% got wrong and put all of this into the occult, and it has absolutely covered, blanketed the planet with darkness. And so God just kind of plopped me in with my little teeny tiny little light, navigating my way down the river Styx, just with my little light, going to get people down in the underworld to bring them back up to the surface, because there's so many people down there that shouldn't be down there. But you have to follow the sound of my voice, and eventually you'll see my light, and that's when you know you've been saved. But it starts with having to see things honestly for what they really are. And if you are somebody who experiences or indulges in the paranormal or the supernatural, or you know you're creating it, or you're dabbling in things that you're getting wrong in that, you need to know these things, because it's important, because getting it wrong comes back on you. When you get any of this stuff wrong, it comes back on you, and then it comes back on your children and your children's children, and you know, your parents and your siblings and your loved ones, and that when you get it wrong, it comes back on you. And so if you have genuinely lived a life where you've just had, you know, just setback after setback after setback, and you genuinely, when you've gone over your whole history, you genuinely know that you haven't done enough to deserve the punishment or the karma that you've been getting, and you just can't figure it out, it is going to be from past life or ancestral debt. And so many things get passed down from generation to generation in regards to the paranormal that's just wrong. And you know, then these videos get made and these shows get made, and they all keep passing on the same information, because they all keep bouncing the same information off each other, and it is perpetuating myths and mental illness. It is promoting mental illness. It is putting things in people's lives that don't deserve to be there, putting things in people's heads that don't deserve to be there, that are just wrong, profiting from people's suffering in a way that is incorrect and quite often disrespectful. It's insulting to the dead. It does nothing to memorialise the victims or the people that you've encountered or anything like that. It is all for selfish needs and gains and wants, for likes, shares and subscribes and all of that sort of stuff. It is an absolute insult to the memory of the dead, the way that these people carry on, stomping around graveyards and messing about with headstones. And there are some people out there that do it beautifully, you know. Faces of the Forgotten. What's his name? There's that English guy, I can't remember his name. He's done a couple of really lovely ones that I've even commented on. I can't remember his name, unfortunately. And then there's that Lamar guy, but he talks about like murders and he goes to the graves and stuff like that. There are people that do this stuff the right way, the really respectful way, where they make it about the victim or the person or whoever, and not about themselves. Um, and one of the things that they're always told, one of the things they always talk about is portals. And portals are only for things like thought travel, thought communication. Portals are like phone lines. You can't walk through them. Your body wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure. Even a dead person, like it would crush atoms. Wormholes are really powerful. And what I call portals are like, Epstein tunnels and Diddy tunnels and any kind of waterway or entranceway where like slave ships were brought in and that sort of thing. But actual portals are, well, say for example, if you've ever had a clairvoyant episode where you've thought of something and then it's happened. From you thinking it to when it happened, your mind, your biometric frequency, travelled through a portal. But it's actually like the connection between the brain and the conscious universe. It travels through the wormholes. But the brain's version of a wormhole would be neurons. The neurons in the brain. They look exactly like wormholes in the universe because it's all connected, because it's all one, because the universe is basically just one big giant brain, right? And we're just a brain within a brain within a brain within a brain. That's pretty much what atoms are. A brain within a brain within a brain within a brain. So, so the dead, because they're not actually like dead people who come up out of their graves and, go wandering about and stuff like that, they don't need portals in order to be able to communicate with the living. All they have to do is bend matter. They can only do it in quick bursts, because whoever they are in real life has to be in a state of stasis, like sleep, unconsciousness, in the zone. If you're a creative person, when you're in that zone, when you're in the flow, and everything's just going smoothly, that's you connecting to the consciousness. That's you interacting with those wormholes. That's the portals. It's very peaceful, and you travel through the portals. It's like surfing the wave. Like you can travel through them without even thinking about it, in your sleep, or when you're in the zone, or when you're daydreaming, sort of drifting off, that sort of thing. But yeah, going on to the EMF side of it, people need to understand with those EMF detectors, and even like voice boxes and stuff, they are very, very, very easily manipulated. EMF detectors can go off in buildings without electricity and stuff, because they will feed off the sun that has soaked into the soil of the building. And those EMF detectors and that can pick up those sort of things. So, they can say, oh, there's no electricity in the building, but the sun would have had access to that building, and there'll be there'll be warm spots and cold spots and that sort of thing, all based on how much sun the soil has soaked up. And these sort of things can be misconstrued as being the dead, when in actual fact, there may be hidden power lines. There might be a strong enough Wi-Fi signal coming off someone's house that you're picking up on their, the electromagnetic frequency of the power lines, or like there's so many things that can be causing those EMF detectors to go off, and spirit boxes can 100 million absolutely be manipulated, just like with seances and Ouija boards and that. You can, without even realizing it, put your thoughts and your what you're wanting into that box, and it'll come back at you because it mirrors you. Um, People underestimate how powerful the human brain is. And yeah, it can do a lot. Now, there's always an exception to every rule, though. There are some times when absolutely things have come through, like white noise in the radio, and stuff like that, that will be genuine, but these are the sort of things that need to be studied. We're not treating this stuff the right way that it should be. Because for all we know, these could be people stuck in purgatory, in which case we need to ask them questions. These could be people that are communicating while they're asleep as their new selves, in which case we should be asking them questions. The trouble is, like with manifestations, they are so exceptionally rare. The true cases are so exceptionally rare that they're drowned out by all the fake stuff and the AI generated and the misunderstood and the misplaced and the misused and the downright abused. So it's like catching a needle in a haystack. Like being expected to catch a needle in a haystack as the haystacks are going flying past you at the speed of light. That's how impossible. Oh my God, it would just take so long. And I've been at this like 50 years, like 48, 49 years. I think I was about 4 years old when I started sitting back and watching what my sisters were doing. Right, I'm going to go and make a coffee. But yeah, I'm going to pause it. I'll come back. But yeah, EMF detectors, you absolutely cannot trust them for any source of reliable data gathering. You shouldn't be using computers in that at all. Your body lets you know when you're around something that's genuinely supernatural, better than any computer ever can, because your instincts are wired into your central nervous system. So you will feel danger or a change in the atmosphere or a fluctuation in energy or temperature on your skin long before any machine will pick it up, or better than any machine can pick it up. The machine can't pick it up by touch and instinct and intuition. And there's a lot of reasons why there can be cold spots in buildings as well. Again, it's all to do with the sun, what the building materials are. If there's a lot of stone and wood, you're going to have a lot of cold spots where the sun hasn't reached the lower parts of the room or the building, or so I'm going to go and make a coffee. I will be back in a minute, but I shall pause it. Actually, do you know what would be more reliable? And it is a really, really old Victorian trick they used to do, but it is absolutely reliable, and I have seen evidence of it working myself. As a teenager, I've seen actual evidence of it. and it is way more reliable, costs hardly nothing, and when it is actually genuine, you are witnessing the supernatural on a level that is nothing short of mind-blowing when it comes to time theory. And that is just sprinkle plain old flour down on the ground. And if you can put up cameras in that and make sure that, to make sure nobody enters the building, and then you end up with footprints on the ground, that is supernatural. That is physics that needs to be oohed and ahed over, because there is a genuine living person walking about that building, going about their business unaware that they're walking through flour in the future or the past. And you've just witnessed a real life, invisible human being going about their day. Flour is way more reliable. The thing is, the simplest way is often the most effective. Technology is good for some things, but it's not good for everything. And when it comes to the occult and the paranormal, I wouldn't even bother. I mean, I don't bother. I do things with that the Hadron Collider can do just using my brains. Funny. Professor Brian Cox. Just using my brain. Anyway, this is the astro nerd. The cosmic nerd. Oh, I used to call him Professor Cosmic. So, yeah, I'm going to pause it and make a coffee and then I'll come back. Okay. The dead cannot scratch you or push you. I used to think when it did happen, people reporting scratches and things like that, I used to think it did happen. Well, if they're doing that, it's because they're showing you how they died. That's what I used to think, but it's not that at all. It's not physically possible for the dead to touch you in that kind of a way. How do I explain it? It's like you can be asleep and wake up, to someone touching you, like you'll feel like you're being poked or that sort of thing. And more often than not, it is a muscle spasm. As your brain is starting to fire up again after your soul has docked back into your body when you've been off sleeping, and that we do things like dream, and we'll have like spasms in that to start to wake the body up as we come back online, so to speak. And we'll often have dreams where we'll see someone. I remember one time I had a dream where I dreamed a fish was tickling my back. And when I woke up, I swear to God, I could feel like, where the fish was touching my body. But of course it wasn't. It was just muscle spasms in that. And I see a lot of footage where people are like, did you see her back moved and then she fell down the stairs? She got pushed by the spirit of the blah. Or, and I was walking, then I got pushed and almost fell down the stairs. There's been people that have caught like visual fluctuations and stuff like that on video. That is kind of, quite interesting data, but they're reading it wrong because they keep assuming it's the dead. The dead they can't touch us like that. When someone has died and they have the ability to come through to the living, they do it in a way that because they have to bend matter in order to do it, they basically have to sort of bend time out of the way to slip in between the gaps while time is still being created, and in order to do that, they have to do it so fast and in such a way that when they come through to you, it's with a purpose. They don't mess about. If they need your help, they'll say, I need your help. If they have a message, they will pass on that message, and then you will never forget it, because it's such a like, you never forget the supernatural. You never forget it because it's so mind blowing. Whereas the paranormal is confusing, the supernatural is mind blowing when you experience it. And so when someone who has genuinely died is able to slip through the gaps of time to kind of squish it out the way, to, come through to you, it's with a purpose, and it is with reason, and it is matter of fact, and they do what they have to do, and then before you even realise what's going on, they've gone. Because then your senses start to kick in, and you're, back in 3D reality again. Even on the very, very rare occasion where you have a soul that is trapped, that hasn't crossed over, even they, when they make themselves known, they will ask for help. They will let you know they need your help. They will let you know what they want. They don't muck about, because it's not nice to be stuck between the realms of the living and the dead. And you always find that the ones that are stuck, it's usually because their death was so sudden that the shock of it kind of spun their soul out of whack. Or because they're afraid to cross over. Their fear wouldn't let them go into the light, so they stayed trapped. And some of them do manage to slip past God. Some of them do manage to step out of the streamline, to avoid the process. It is possible. Time bends and time slips, and time can get tracked, and absolutely, but it is exceptionally rare. And you'll always know what they want because they ask for your help, which is why I get mad with these paranormal people, where it has, on the rare occasion, been, a genuine case of someone needing help. They don't, because they don't identify it. The genuine ones, the genuine cases always get swamped with the fakes and the, misinformation and misinformed and misunderstood. And it's not fair. But that's why I'm here. So they can't push you down the stairs. The scratches, I 100 million % will stand by my view that it is, it's been there and they haven't realised it's there. We've all discovered marks and bruises and scratches on our bodies and stuff. And we don't know how they've gotten there. And I think it's just hysteria, really. The thing is, the way that the laws of the universe the way that the laws of the universe are designed, is that everything has a consequence, and if every action and reaction has a consequence. And if there are dead people wandering this earth, going around pushing people downstairs, the hell that they would be paying for that kind of karma, they wouldn't even be allowed to be making contact with the living, because it's not like you can just decide to do this stuff. Like, even the dead need permission. Even devils and demons and that have to abide by the rules. So, devils and demons can target people, but they can only do it by tempting them. By devils and demons, basically, how do I put it? Okay, so the devil will say to the friends, make him cheat on his missus, and then she'll break up with him, and then he'll turn to, he'll go to depression and turn to drugs and alcohol, and but just tell him, she won't know, and all this sort of thing. So the friends will, without even realising it, acting as the demons for the devil, will go out and get the mate drunk, and go on, like, we won't tell anyone, blah, blah, blah. And then, he cheats on his missus, or hell breaks loose. Or it could be like, the devil will say to a demon, when you rob that bank, go and ask so-and-so to rob it with you. And so he goes to talk his friend into robbing the bank with him. Now, his friend, if he is like, nah, man, are you crazy? Like, what the hell? So, and just walks off, I want nothing to do with this. The devil's not allowed to touch him, because he's proven himself to be pure. He's innocent. He's, pure of heart. But if he shows, like, oh, I don't know, man, like if he shows any sort of doubt, or where there's a hint that he possibly could sin, then the devil will then get the demon, acting as the friend, to, come on, man, we'll be in and out, be 5 minutes, to talk him into it. When the devil senses that there is that weakness there, the devil will keep tempting and tempting and tempting, and it is up to the friend to say no and walk away, or, finally give in, and then he seals his fate. And then that's when the devil goes, Satan, he signed his soul, he signed his contract, he sold his soul to me, you can come and get him now. And then that's when Satan will come in, and he goes to prison, and he gets beaten up in prison, all that sort of thing. The devil is the one that knows how to tempt you, and he will send the demons out, the minions, the ones that work as, like, the friends. Like, for example, the devil is Donald Trump, and he sent his minions out to try and do everything they could to stop me from getting to America and cracking the case, and, doing the whole Epstein connection thing, because that's what I was working on when, my blog went all kapooty and all that sort of stuff. So in this case, it would be Donald Trump as the devil, and the minions are everybody that helped him try to stop me from protecting Americans and Russia. Or Keir Starmer would be the devil, and Labour and everybody, like the judges, cops, lawyers, blah, 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 would be his minions. But it is up to the target to be the one to be pure of faith, to be able to walk away and say no. The devil can only tempt you if you invite him in. He can knock at your door all day long, but if you don't let him in, he has no power over you. You have to hand the devil power. And the devil comes in many forms, and but even he abides by the rules that Satan sets out. Everyone does, even God does, the universe does, all the atoms do. Satan is the one that wrote the laws on what you should and shouldn't do, to stay out of the bad place. So if there were dead people walking around, pushing people off cliffs and downstairs, and scratching them and hitting them and punching them and pulling them and kicking them, things would be getting done about it. It simply would not be allowed. The negative energy in those buildings would be coming off such negative, dark energy like that you wouldn't even be able to have electricity in that place, because nothing would work, because everything would be drained. Everything would instantly be drained. The electricity bills, if you were even able to have electricity on at all, would be phenomenal. You'd probably be getting charged thousands of dollars in electricity bills every month, even though you're not getting any electricity. That's how negative the energy would be in places where you had dead people walking around scratching you and pushing you downstairs and stuff. I had somebody call into my radio show when I was at WRMN 1410 in Chicago, and he called up and he said that he was fixing his bike. I think it was his motorbike or something. I know, I just remember he was saying he was fixing his bike, and he felt like someone had pushed him from behind, and his hand almost went into the wheel or something, and he almost lost his hand. And he wanted to know like who it was that had pushed his shoulder. And I said to him like, were you leaning down at an angle? Like I said, were you kind of leaning down with your upper body kind of leaning lower down over into the wheel? And he said, yeah. And I said, you would have had a muscle spasm on your shoulder. I said, with the nerve that runs along your shoulder and goes, into your abdomen. I said, when you were leaning over, I said it would have pulled on the nerve in your abdomen and come up and tugged on your shoulder. And he goes, oh, that makes sense. So, like there are a lot of people out there that think that they're being touched and pushed and stuff like that, but you'll be surprised how often it's actually just muscle spasms or, pulling on nerves. So, yeah, that's another myth that I have to dispel, I'm afraid. You can argue with me all day long, but I will always be able to come up with a logical reason as to why you got scratches or why you felt like you were being pushed. Because it doesn't work like that. There are laws that even the dead have to abide by. And for the ones that don't play by the rules, they're not allowed turfside. They're not allowed to be let loose near the living. So that's what hell is when you have an existence without the presence of light. And light is life. I am the life. I am the light. So yeah, so they don't push you and scratch you. The dead really do 100% care about what you bury them in. They really do. I can't even begin to count the amount of times that, when people have died and they've come to me like within the hours or whatever of their death, and they've made me go to the person and they've said, can you change their shoes, or they don't like the way you did their hair, or that sort of thing. They'll always be like, I knew I should have put the black ones on it. Or see, I told you he wouldn't like his hair like that. Yeah, that sort of thing. They really do care about what you bury them in. They want to make they want to look nice for when they meet their maker. So, when you are burying your loved ones, put a lot of thought. If they haven't told you what they want to go in, put thought into what you're going to put them in. Put them in what they would be wanting to wear when they were going home to meet, if they were going home to their parents or to meet God, or it doesn't have to be a suit. It's whatever they feel the most comfortable in, What made them feel the most comfortable? What made them feel the prettiest? What made them feel special? We all have a top or something that when we wear it, it makes us feel special. If I take a break, it's just because I'm sipping my coffee. So yeah, they really do care about what you put them in. And the one thing that the dead care about more than anything in the world is being remembered. So when you're going past graveyards and cemeteries and you see memorial walls or anything like that, take time to just read some of their names out, or read all of their names out if you can, because it keeps them present. It pulls them to us, and it keeps them present in the moment, and they'll stay in the timeline instead of fading away from it. Because the less you're remembered, the further down the timeline you remain, which is why high functioning, creative, empathic geniuses are given such a blessing when they're offered an ascension, because what they're promised at the end of it is pretty much immortality with whatever it is they create as a result of the ascension. They become like Mozart. Who wants you want your last name to be as synonymous as Mozart or Da Vinci or Michelangelo or Pavarotti. People like Yodok Cello are getting there. So this is why it's so important that you get all of this stuff right. Because the high functioning creative empaths are the ones who are going to have the biggest fascination with the occult. We're the ones that dabble. Because death fascinates us. What happens next fascinates us. Wanting to know stuff fascinates us. And we're not afraid to go down those dark paths or those quiet paths or those hermiting stages in that in order to do it. It's just that we always start out unbalanced. And so, I can give you the answers. So when you get Ouija boards and seances involved and things start happening and that, you can go, oh no, it's all right. I know what to do because I listened to that podcast and Debbie said that it's this. And so we need to do this, 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 and this. Or people just won't bother doing this stuff anymore because they'll think, well, all you're doing is basically entertaining your own mental illness. You're talking to your own mental illness. You're talking to your own demons, pretty much, or somebody's demons in the room. That's pretty all it is, pretty much. The dead just don't communicate like that. They don't need to. The way that they do it is so much easier than we make it out to be. It's mankind that makes everything much more complicated than it needs to be. But yeah, that's what I'm here for. For the occult, paranormal stuff, that's for sure. Don't think as well that just because I debunk everything and I'm like, well, no, it's not this and it's not that. Like, don't think that I'm like a killjoy, where I'm saying that none of it is real. There are genuinely some experiences out there that even I've had myself that even to this day I can't explain. And this is my science, but there are things that have happened to me And I had my sister and her best friend as a witness, because it happened to all three of us, that I still cannot explain to this day. It makes no sense. But there are genuinely some things out there that happen that can't be explained, that absolutely fascinate me, which is why I want to make my shows, why I want to go out into the world and see if I can find any more stuff that can't be explained, because my brain has to understand it. I can't not understand it. And I know, I'm sure I will find the answers, but there are absolutely things out there that happen in this world that even I still can't explain. But for everything else that I can explain, I'm honest about it, because it's not healthy to believe in things that aren't healthy to believe in. But what I am trying to do is point you in the direction of the stuff that you should be believing in, because it's way cooler. And in order to experience it, all you have to do is just basically not be a dickhead anymore. Like, you got to just work on yourself, pay off your debts. The thing is, though, you get to a point where when you take your trip into the underworld, you will do anything to get yourself out of it, even if that means listening to somebody like me and, putting down the sugar and putting down the drugs, or putting down the toxic behaviour, stopping the toxic behaviour, getting away from the toxic people. But when you're in the underworld, you experience things you never, ever, ever want to experience again. It's so emotionally painful. You don't ever want to go through it again. And you have to crawl out of hell, basically, in order to escape it. And you crawl out of hell by being honest with yourself. By knowing, I've got to move out. I've got to change my job. I've got to get on the plane. I need to go and see them. I need to take that job. I have to give up my job, and you become magnetically drawn to doing the right thing by you. Because that's why you're here. That's why you're living, is to experience life as you. Nobody else in the world could do it but you. So you have to be the one to fix you. And you have to be honest with yourself. Am I happy? Am I in the job I love? Am I living where my heart is happy? Am I with the person who makes me happy? Can I spend the rest of my life with this person? When I look at you, are you someone I can spend the rest of my life with? When I walk into the office, is this a job I want to do for the rest of my life? When I go to school, is this a subject I want to do for the rest of my life? Do I want to be a doctor? Do I really? Or do I want to be a musician? Or do I want to just do pottery, or write a book, or travel, or maybe I should just take a break, like that sort of thing. It starts with you listening to that voice that is asking you if you're happy or not. Are you happy with your choices? If you can 100% say you're happy with your choices after your ascension, then you're pretty much just handed bliss, You get to live your life in the bliss state because you know you've earned it by doing all the right things that made you happy, and not in a narcissistic, selfish way. You know what I mean? You know, when you go against everybody and listen to your own opinions, you listen to your own heart. When you go through an ascension, you have to fight everybody because nobody will want you to change. Nobody will want you to better yourself, because then you're leaving them behind, or leaving the ones who don't put in the work to better themselves as well behind. So then you become the bad guy and you have to face a lot of opposition. I'm just going to have a sip. Everyone will tell you what you're doing is wrong, that you're making a mistake. But the thing is, I've sat with too many dying people to know that the one thing you don't want to do before you take your last breath is die with regrets. Even if you try it and it never works out and you have to go back to your old job, at least you can say you gave it a go. And that's what you have to say to people. I have to be the one to make the mistake, but I don't want my biggest mistake to be that I never gave it a go. I have to at least try. And if I try and fail, then I was never meant to do it. And then I can say, well, at least I gave it a go. But I don't need your permission to try living a better life for myself. That's what you need to say to people. That's what you need to talk to yourself about. Are you happy in the direction that your life is going? And if the answer is no, then you need to have a talk to yourself about what needs to change. And then that's when your ascension begins. That's when you start coming out of the underworld, because as you start pulling away from all the people and places and things and behaviours and thought patterns and that, as you start pulling away from all the stuff that was holding you down, you become more ambitious. You start picking up skills again that you forgot you had. You start loving things that you haven't loved since you were a kid in there, and before you know it, you've started weaving some kind of gift or skill into your life that has actually been there the whole time. You just didn't know they were there or forgot they were there, that are now becoming something that you can absolutely 100% see. That's my future. And then when you finish your ascension and you go through all your trials and you come out of it having mastered your virtues and, found hope and faith, having found hope in your faith, whatever that faith is, that's when you get to become the master of all that you have created. And then that's when you become the next Mozart or Da Vinci, Charles Dickens. Yodok Cello's getting there. I wonder how he's doing. We've still got that little matter to sort out with my ex-husband, with my soon-to-be ex-husband. So what's some other myths? Try and dispel some other myths. The dead cannot possess you. You possess you. You create the demons in your head. You create the voices in your head. If you're not picking up on other people around you, or things that have been, imprinted in the atmosphere from people from the past, it's not the dead putting those voices and stuff in your head that make you think that you're possessed. The dead can't possess you. As I've explained it before, the easiest way that the previously living people contact us is in our sleep. It's the least, the path to least resistance. It should just do it when we're relaxed and they're not having to explain themselves. This is the easiest way for them to do it. When they do have to actually like defy the laws of physics and bend time in order to do it, it's done with such a force and with such an impact on your psychological mind, you never forget it. But when people are possessed, they are in full blown, like, psychotic meltdown. And you'll always be able to find the triggers. In every case, I know there's either been some sort of abuse or depression, being bullied, arguing parents, unhappy home, that sort of thing. Overly religious parents as well is another one, as a common factor. It's just the dead. I can't put it any simpler other than the fact that the dead just don't exist like that. It means that probably a good 98-99% of what is perceived to be paranormal on the internet and in social media and in the books and in history is all like a mass collective of multi-perpetuating energies kind of supporting mental illness or psychological imbalance, because it depends. It doesn't always have to be mental illness. It doesn't always have to be mental illness. It can be, an imbalance where you just need to step away from the Schumann resonance and you will absolutely, ascend. But it just goes to prove how powerful the mind is. I've studied, the Enfield poltergeist and, I've studied so many of them. And they all have the same kind of, they're not from single parent households. There's been, a recent death. The parents are fighting, like I said, overly religious parents, and it's a stress release for the children. But it is absolutely fascinating. But yeah, no, they can't possess us. Nobody is allowed to access your mind without your permission. So, when people try to use mind control on you, that's why it's such a gross violation of your personal space and your right to privacy. When people are putting thoughts in your head, it's a breach of your personal privacy. And a lot of the time, some of them won't even know they're doing it. So, to think that people think that the dead would try to access someone's mind in order to possess them and make them swear and stuff like that. I mean, it just defies logic on every level. When I mean, it's obvious that it is like an absolute psychotic episode. I've seen them when I was locked up. I've seen them have like these breakdowns and stuff, and the murmurings of evil spirits and all that sort of thing. But as soon as I was able to explain it all, everything stopped. Some of these girls were too afraid to sleep without sleeping tablets and that because of the things that they were saying. But as soon as I was able to go through and do what I had to do, everything stopped. And we had weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of just peace and calm. And they all kept saying, "Oh my God, like whatever you did." I was like, they used to think I was like magic because, yeah, I could just, I just knew how to make everything go away. Which is why I will always defend my science. I will not let anyone tell me that what I have created is a mental illness. I mean, it's the most ignorant thing you could ever possibly call such a groundbreaking form of the physics of psychology, or the psychology of physics. I just don't understand how people aren't wanting to study this stuff. It absolutely fascinates me. I have so many questions that I want to ask people with, is it called, what's it called, DDI, DDS? Multiple personalities. I have so many questions. As a time theorist, oh my God, I would love to sit down and I want to figure out how much of it is supernatural as opposed to psychological. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that's all I had in my head, just dispelling some myths, just to give you some, run the bath and listen to my podcast in the bath. I'm that kind of like, just listen to me while you're laying in bed at night. So you can drift off to sleep. I'll put you to sleep. But I wanna try and at least make a couple of shows a week. I'll always try and continue the theme on from the last one, so it's like we're having one big long conversation. But I just thought, yeah, that I would do this one where I just dispelled some myths about the paranormal because, yeah, there are some things out there that people need to understand the right way, because it's not healthy to believe the wrong things about the life and death process. It has to be, it's like an exact science. It has to be exact because you don't want to get it wrong and end up in the wrong place. I'm trying to help you go to the good places when you go, and hopefully get to the point where this time around you get to decide what you do when you come back, if you want to come back at all. So, right, I'm going to go. I shall speak to you later. In regards to Yodok, when I said he's nearly there, what I would dearly love to see for him is for him to compose his own music. I was originally gonna say to him, did he want to come and work with me on Vanta Black? We were going to do some collaboration stuff together, and then all that stuff kicked off with my husband hacking my social media and blah blah blah, and yeah, still waiting on the investigation for that. But as long as his fans are safe, that's all I care about. As long as his fans are protected, that's the only thing I care about. But yeah, I would love to see him do his own stuff, like compose his own classical music. I think that would be really beautiful. So yeah, once he does that, then he'll be like Mozart and all of that. Hopefully, if he does it, but if he doesn't, I'm just saying, I'd just love to see him do his own stuff. I think he's got it in him. Anyway, so I'm going to go now, and I will speak to you later. I wish you could smell. I've just put some oils together for my Menavella range. I'm doing like a men's range of essential oils to put in the oil burner. And this one here in particular that I'm doing is for men who have to, draftsmen and architects and writers and anyone who has to work with looking over paper with pens and stuff in their hand, detectives, forensic scientists, morticians, that sort of thing. They could burn this sort of stuff. Anyone who works with paper and pen or paper and pencil, like I said, architect, how you roll them out on the table, how you unroll the plans or the whatever out on the table. Lawyers, anything to do with contracts, anything to do with pen and paper, no matter how big the sheet of paper is. Draftsman, like I said, designer, seamstress, whatever. Yeah, these oils, they're like my Menavella range, but they're for various professions. And this one here is for the men that work with pen and paper or pencil and paper. Okay, so but I wish you could smell it. Oh my god, it's so amazing. And just with these candles, and it's just so ambient. It's well ambient. And just my moon's out and my animals have gone Betty Boys, and like I've put fresh bedding on, I've had a shower, my hair's all washed and dried, I've got clean jammies on, got my hair in two little ponytails. I'm like, just, yeah, it's just so chill. I just wish you could be here. It's so chill. Anyway, so I'm going to go, and I will speak to you later. If you have any questions, you can just leave comments. Although it'll probably say no one's watched because like I'm that heavily shadow banned, but I know I am because people keep mentioning my stuff. So I will speak to you later. Have a wonderful weekend. Know that you are loved. Hold your head up high. Ka kite anō. Mwah.